I talked to my friends at the NFL Network this morning. It's been hell on the NFL this past week, okay? It's been a tough couple of weeks. And I think what's happening is that the people are finally speaking.
Once you're starting to leave scars and bruises and welts all over a child's body, then that's totally child abuse. That's not discipline anymore.
I don't think this is child abuse. I've said it before, that his intent was not to abuse his child, and I do not believe that.
What then is abuse? And how do we understand it? I'll tell you where I understand it. Well, I understand when a child loses trust of the people who say they love them. By the way, when you abuse a kid and say you love them, it's more damaging. It's more confusing to them. How could you love and pain go together? How is that possible? So that's more traumatic for the child, number one. And then number two, where is that line? I put it at terror.
Let's talk about this child here that has welts all over his testicles, his anus, his inner thighs, bleeding. That is abuse. And to justify, you said it was a mistake. Well, guess who's paying for his mistake? His kid.
If it was a good parenting mechanism and the research showed that it was useful and helpful to kids, of course I would advocate it. It shows exactly the opposite, though, that it harms kids.
If I'm being 100% honest, I don't know where your pool of research has come from, but with the eyes that I have, I've seen it work effectively.
As a parent, Dr. Drew, it is my responsibility to make sure that my kid is not a menace to society. And if I've got to do that through swatting their behind, in addition to disciplining them, then I think that that's my right as a parent to do.
We don't know what the long-term effects of that are. These kids are afraid. Sometimes, maybe not your children, but I've seen kids in big fear response modes when they're 13, 14, 15 years old because they're afraid of their parents. We don't want kids to be afraid. We want them to be loved and want to go to their parents.
From a clinical standpoint, we know for sure using physical violence teaches a kid that that's what loved ones do to one another. They hit each other. And that's what you do when you want to control people with behavior. You hit each other. Research also shows that when you hit a child, their behavior stops in the moment and then comes back quickly and actually goes above the baseline. It gets worse. We also know that if a child has terror during the abuse for any reason, it shatters their ability to regulate and traumatizes and changes their brain development. It literally changes the relationship of the brain to the body. The vagus nerve starts mediating dissociation in the brain as a way of surviving. Survival mode becomes the way of regulating emotions. It's a very problematic brain condition that we in addiction medicine treat every day. It's what sets up people then seeking substances as a way to try to regulate. This is more than hoarding. This is way beyond that. This is absolute filth. This is an inhumane environment to raise a child.
There is no way to understand this, and I'm hearing that the lawyer is saying, oh, she must have some mental illness. I'm sick of it. It is BS.
At some point, I just feel like attorneys use the idea of mental illness to their advantage, and there has to be some point where that margin kind of shrivels up.
You know, when people live in hoarding squalor, there can be a separate hoarding condition, but also there can be thought disturbances like schizophrenia, those sorts of things. But there was no, well, Erica's shaking her head vigorously, but Judy, I don't know of any evidence of that.
So I actually think this is a case where mental illness is misused once again in our legal system. I don't think she's mentally ill. I think she has low cognitive functioning or low IQ. She does not know how to problem solve her way out of things that are very simple.
This is one of the most disturbing stories in our country today, which is that young people are so lost, so disconnected from self and family, no religious or spiritual values, that they can be the targets for people that are brutal terrorists.
They're using anything and everything from Twitter to, not Tinder, Mike, but Facebook to Instagram. And Dr. Drew, they've become so sophisticated with it where they are really utilizing pop culture references, slang to get to the younger demographic in recruitment.
It becomes word of mouth, and then you almost dare other people to watch them. And these clips take on a life of their own.
This girl is in the greatest country in the world, and yet she's willing to follow down somebody that she sees on a TV screen, not really knowing that, you know, they're willing to give up her life very easily. And look, if she came over there, she would probably be one of the first people to die.
I think the type of profile that we're looking at is somebody who doesn't really have an identity, who's got kind of a young mind, just like this individual, who doesn't really have a sense of belonging here at home in America.
With the internet and social media becoming such a humongously prevalent part of our lives, parenting
more than ever before has to be huge in our lives. You need to know everything your kids are doing online.
So you're saying families and spiritual life and community and all the basics, everybody. Guess what? My grandma knew the right answers. How about that?